All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of Leverage Lane here on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. We got the RBC Heritage coming up. We're going to break down all things, teaching you how to play, not just who to play. We'll talk through the chalk build, the ownership. We'll talk about some of the ways to leverage the chalk build. We'll get to our lane at the end, one and done, the betting segment. We also do little Q&A up front, some topics, some things like that. Going to have a bit of a Masters recap. We are going to talk about Scottie getting a bit of a price drop here, and then a no-cut event, how it affects that. We're going to talk about Colin Morikawa, beware the injured golfer. Our man Alex Blickle here with me as usual. He had the call on that last week, and he'll bring you some very interesting points when it comes to Colin Morikawa this week out there at Hilton Head. But thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate you. Make sure to smash that thumbs up on the way in. If you're on mobile and you got the chat screen up, just hit the little X, hit the thumbs up, go right back into the chat, and you can join us to engage. If you're watching this after, you can leave a comment regarding anything you want us to talk about in the future. But on that note, and last thing quickly, Alex, before I bring you in, my man, is I will say no show next week for the Zurich Classic. So I'm away, family vacation. I always plan my vacations around the worst golf event of the season, in my opinion, at least from a fantasy perspective and playing these things. So excited to get away with the family. But Alex, I'll bring you in, man. What a Masters we just had, my friend, and excited to talk about RBC Heritage with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't last year's Masters, but what could have been last year's Masters. It was another really fun one. I think there are some interesting conversations. I don't know if you want to have them here on this show, but like just about how Augusta kind of threw us all a curveball and it made the course a lot softer than we expected. And
little H2O on that thing. Yeah, man, why wasn't that talked about more, by the way? And I want to have all kinds of conversations, but that was pretty interesting. And what's funny is Scottie didn't say nothing until he did, when he lost by one stroke. And then he was like, I can't. The best is when you know a guy like can't not say something. He's so humble, but he had to say it. He's like, I just want to let you know this is what happened. And it's like, okay, he told us.
Yeah, and that to me, like, I've seen kind of mixed reviews about it, where, I've seen people taking the stance of defending Augusta and pointing to the fact that, like, one very cool thing, and I will admit that it's very cool, is like the winning score at Augusta is usually in this like 10 to 12 under range. They clearly have this idea of like, what is the optimal range that's going to produce the most drama, where you have guys who are playing well and making a fair amount of birdies and shooting really good scores, but then you also have it difficult enough that you're still seeing plenty of bogeys around the golf course. You're still seeing doubles and triples, and in Haotong's case, tens. So, they have this like really nice balance in that regard. The problem is you can't have it both ways. You can't have that be what you're going for and trying to get that score, and also letting the media hype up your event all week long by talking about how firm and fast and difficult the course is going to get, and then letting that happen to the Thursday afternoon wave and then watering the hell out of the golf course. Either you're controlling the conditions throughout the week, maintaining the integrity of the course so that it's playing the same for everybody, or you're letting Mother Nature just like run its course and letting whatever happens. And then if the course like really does get out of control, like maybe they looked at Thursday and they said, okay, we don't want it to get any more difficult than it got Thursday afternoon, because any more difficult would be borderline unfair. Okay, then water the course a little bit overnight so you get a repeat of the conditions the next day and nothing more. Not make it significantly easier and more receptive for all 3 days moving on. I just thought that was really like uncharacteristically non-golf purist, if you will, of Augusta. Usually like it's the Mecca of golf. It's where everything about golf is in its purest form, and in that way, like they totally smashed that. And then it just, as Scottie said, like I think Scottie did a good job of not talking before that, because the player in him is just saying like, I'm not making any excuses for myself. all I can do is control what I can control and go play. But then once the tournament's over, he doesn't need that mindset anymore. Now he can just like say what he's actually been feeling all week, which is I got screwed on Thursday and everybody knows it.
Yeah. And by the way, too, Rory tried to give him a shot at a playoff there on 18. That shot when they brought the video out yesterday, because it was tough on the CBS coverage to kind of figure that out, to just speaking of that, of Rory down the stretch. That was pretty crazy as well. I mean, I got to hit up the chat real quick. I said for fantasy purposes, by the way, going to any PGA event is awesome. I've been to plenty of them, and I think they're all incredible. I would love to be there. I'm a fan of New Orleans. I think that's a good spot to be. I'm saying it's really nothing to do with that. It's just not great. There's not a lot of angles or edges to it from fantasy. Like when it first came out, there was like you could play like different price points. And remember, like people were like, well, you play the cheaper guy because that was like an edge, and then eventually just made them all the same price. And there's no real angle of opportunity. We're just betting and gambling to get some action down. So I'm all for that. And if I was there, it'd be phenomenal. But I'll be in Dominican Republic, so I'll be in pretty good weather myself and enjoying it with some family time. But yeah, I agree with you on being at those events. What else on the Masters? I guess one other thing was it's almost like a WWE event if they like planned it. Like it's like gonna go into the room tonight and decide like Thursday night, we probably don't need to do this, but let's do it. Let's tighten this up. Oh, Rory's up by 6 now. All right, we got to tighten this shit up quick and give them an opportunity to come back on a different route. Like I'm not saying they do that because it's not true, but I'm noting it. It's like
it almost seemed to me. It almost seemed to me like they were trying to let Rory go top last year by not just defending his title, but by defending his title and setting a new scoring record so that a live guy no longer holds the scoring record, even though most people view it with an asterisk since DJ's 20 under, I think it was 20, came in the November Masters. But yeah, it was just weird. And I think like it's probably unlikely that they did this with the specific goal in mind of getting Rory another win. But they also need to have like the self-awareness to realize that's what everyone's going to think when we water the shit out of this golf course. And all of a sudden the conditions are so much easier than they were yesterday. It was, like I said, it was just really odd. It was a curveball. And both from a fan perspective, I really didn't like it because it's so compelling to see how difficult the course can get. And I think an important point there is if Augusta never does anything to try and control the golf course, you're going to get plenty of years where the course is soft and receptive and you're getting those, really scoreable conditions. But you're going to get very few opportunities to make the course as firm and fast as it could have been this week. And I think you got to take that opportunity when you get it. So that was really concerning. And then from a betting standpoint, like I lost a bunch of money on Underdog this week because I kept making bets that said, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher tomorrow. I don't think we're going to see what we saw yesterday. And they just kept doing it. And that was really, really annoying on my wallet as well.
Last quick note, shout out to you on the Henley call, by the way, getting all the way up the board, definitely left a couple out there down the stretch. I know there's variants, he makes some, miss some, etc. But he really did his job trying to get up there too. But the other thing, man, last week, Rory's a different golfer now. Like there's no way he blows this. In the end, he didn't. I get it, but like it was over very quickly on Saturday. That narrative of like there's no way this is gonna be a runaway. The Vince Carter GIF was out. The up 10 plus blowout is incoming. Like all this, it was gone like that. Faster than you could imagine. Yeah, it's an awesome resiliency to bounce back and whatnot. But I'm just saying, it's like when people are thinking a golf tournament is over, especially at that course, it's the literal saying for years now, before I'm born, has been like this tournament doesn't start till the back 9 on Sunday. It's like that. Here it was again. Look at these guys going low. Like Hatton's getting into the mix. Scheffler's coming back. Henley's rolling. And all those guys were in the mix while Rory wasn't doing too much. So just to keep that in mind. I mean, Cam Young, it was his for the taking as well to actually beat Rory for the Rory's going to blow this thing out and win by 1 million type thing too. So yeah, it's always a fun golf tournament. I had a great week. I will say shout out to everybody. I got to just give some supports. I'm only doing one show a week now. So I'll say I do appreciate everybody that reached out, had the nice Millie Maker sweat on Sunday up top there. It's like, somebody asked me, it was like, do you really think you're going to win? No, absolutely. Like I had like maybe a 3%. I think Cut Sweat said a 4%. I probably had half that. It's like, it's not really about that. It's if you're fortunate enough, and I'm very grateful for all the people that support and look out for me and, want to say like, do this, and they're cheering for me. That means a lot. But like when people are messaging you over and over, it's actually better to just embrace it and say, hey, here's where I'm at. Let's hope for a day. All we can do is observe. That's my message to you guys on anything. Like we get negative thoughts around like, you can only really get a negative thought if you are already putting the money in your bank account. You cannot put the money in your bank account until it actually closes and the tournament ends. So all you can do is watch the golf, observe. Your guys could suck early and bounce back late when it matters. Your guys could start fast and then they suck at the end when you need it, when you think you're going to get it again and you're even closer to it, but it's never yours until the tournament's over. And what a wild turn of events. Shout out, by the way, to Nelson over at Cut Sweat. Speaking of that, getting the job done and shipping the Millie Maker. His was funny too. He posted like day one, or I think it was day 2, he was crushing it. Day 3, he's like, there goes that equity. Day 4, bounces back and wins it. So it's like that, anything can happen. But I'll tell you, Alex, my sweat, because people had asked me about this, is only formed to really bring it out. So I was winning the $250 buy-in tournament on FanDuel after 3 rounds, 200 grand. I was up 20 points, by the way. Spoiler alert, it finished like 46th or 64th or something. One of those two numbers is bad.
Did you have
on
Lowry?
DraftKings, what's that?
Did you have Lowry?
No, but I had Day and I had, who's the other guy? It was Day and somebody else that really hurt me. And then like the other guys just didn't do enough. It had Rory, Young, Day, Knapp, someone and someone. I can't remember who the other 2 were, but anyway, it wasn't Henley. It wasn't Hatton. It wasn't any of those guys climbing up the board. Rose, not all of them did good, but it wasn't Rose. All those guys weren't in there. So that was kind of what I was fading. And then on the DraftKings lineup, it had 4 out of the 6 the same. And Kitayama was what I needed early, and he had opportunities to just burn them all. So I was like, it's already not looking good. But then I still had Burns and Henley and Knapp and guys that were scoring a little bit with Young and Rory. So I was like, oh man, maybe this can still do damage. It did not. You're never feeling good about that. But then the craziest thing of all is round 4 showdown with 200K up top. I've got a lineup with Scheffler and Hatton, and it had McNeely, McCarty, like Keegan, all the guys that crushed in the morning.
Oh,
and
they went nuts.
They went nuts. I had like 140 points just from those 3 or something. So anyway, long story short, it's like my daughter, who's 7, has no clue about like sweating it for real, like for what the money is. I keep her out of that side of it. But like, she's like, weren't we just cheering for Rory as I'm going nuts for Scottie? And I'm like, we aren't now, honey. We're now cheering for Scottie Scheffler. And she's like, all right, go Scottie then. She's a true team player. But I was like, man, we got to get this job done. And Rose made a very crazy bogey on 17 from like a 3-foot miss. And I was like, oh my God, it bumped me into first for 200 grand. The Rory and Young lineups were behind me. It was a Ship It Nation member, shout out to Lighty, who ended up getting it at the end for 200K. Rose needed to bogey or worse on 18, and he made par. He chipped it. He had it greenside, chipped it up, and tapped it in, and that moved us back because he got the points back from the par. I lost by 0.6. But then what I didn't realize when I got the second and thinking like there was that, like I got this moment. It's like, damn, there's actually one Rory lineup that is close to me that if he makes a birdie on 18, I know it's not likely, but what a shift. You up 100K extra to 200, down 100K to 100K, and then it's like the 60K drop to 40K if Rory makes the birdie. He goes in the trees. I'm like, thank goodness. And then he hits that second shot. And I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me here. And so like, again, I don't think it was going to go in, but just if anything happens, it reminded me like the year that him and Morikawa made the bunker shots on 18. I was like, imagine that gets you for like 60K and there's no real way to do anything about it. So fun sweat nonetheless. It was, just wildest ways to get to the 6-figure plus that I didn't expect at all.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like the guy asking you, did you really think you were going to win? Like, understand having a 4% chance or anything close to that to win $1 million in the last day, that's orders and orders of magnitude above where you were at the start of the week. That's absolutely worth getting. That
most people would get right. It's like a 120 shot here that we're going up to have a chance to win $1 million. It's like, do you expect it? No, and you never should. But it is crazy when people are like, you really posted that? Or the people, by the way, that are like, your business partner, Hoop, he jinxed you because he congratulated you and posted the screenshot. It's like, if you think one of my best friends and business partners don't know me well enough to know I literally don't give a shit about a jinx, a mush, a nothing. We have no control over what those golfers do. All we can do is build good, use sound process like we're about to talk about on this show for this week upcoming. But I think that's important to note is this, a life lesson too. Is just like I said, I always tell people like the motivating factors and like the fact that you put yourself in those positions, that's all you can do. Our job is done Thursday morning at lock. We have no control after that. So that's just my thoughts.
A lot of the time when you and I have like a topic in mind to talk about, like we did satellites the one time, for example, we've talked beforehand. I don't want to totally just put you on the spot here, but I think we actually just like organically came across a really good topic to talk through strategy wise that I know I have personally struggled with at times. I know basically like every subscriber of mine who has ever had a sweat has considered or alluded to this concept for round 4. Did you let your main slate sweats affect your round 4 showdown build at all, in the sense that, like, let's say you needed Cam and Rory? Are you then in showdown saying, okay, well, I might as well, hedge, where if one of those guys fails, now I'll at least, have the advantage in showdown if I fade them, things of that nature. So, like, I don't want to use the word hedge because it's so difficult to quote unquote hedge a DFS lineup, because you need so many things to go right. And you don't just need like your lineup to do well to make up for it in round 4. You need to do extremely well. So even if you get like one thing really, really right, you still need everyone else to get there. But did your sweats affect your round 4 lineup in any way?
So I've talked about this a ton in the past, and I think actually it's a really good topic, because round 4, I also think, is at least slightly different than the other stuff, because obviously things are percolating. Now, if you are doing what you're calling it, and I get what you're saying 100%, because people call it a hedge. It's like, that's what I'm trying to say to people for years now, is like, I think it's terrible move in like round 2. If you truly have an advantage and you think that's the advantage, like what people do is they go, okay, I got Scottie Scheffler 50% in main slate, so I'll fade him in round 2, because if Scottie goes off in round 2, that means my classic lineups are good. Well, it doesn't. You have 5 more golfers in those lineups. So not only are you dead in showdown because he went off and you faded him, but all your Scottie lineups, not all of them, but just saying it could happen, they might all be 5 or 6 now. So you just lost money twice. You're dead going into the weekend, and you made a bad decision. So you might take that mentality and structure into round 3 and continue playing bad money or just not putting the effort in. I think the difference in round 4, and I didn't like fully hedge or anything. I had a ton of Cam Young in both places. I had Rory versions of the lineups I liked. The one spot, though, that I did ignore was Kitayama, because it was like there was already other value plays down there. That's how I got to Keegan more often. Yeah. That's, other things like that. Nick Taylor, who didn't fully come through, but it was like Kitayama would have been a game changer for that lineup, where I then kind of, again, doesn't mean it would have went right, but it's like, also, is Kitayama really going to crush in round 4? He's way down the board. It's not like he's needed or something like that. So it's like, if I could or did land near that, I was definitely not going to Kitayama. But all the other lineups were built accordingly with the idea of like certain situation. Now, the Scottie lineup that happened to come together was predicated on like pure structure, like roster construction of what my thought process was for Sunday is it's hard to win a Masters. It might finally bake out. They kind of want, if they want this thing to come down to the end, it's like it's Cam Young and it's Rory. Like, they're both very capable, having great weeks, but it might not come through. Why not just take the best golfer in the world, Scottie Scheffler, whether you believe he is not or has been lately or not, fine, but whatever, play him and play ball strikers. If you look at the Masters board on Sunday, it's like Morikawa, Hatton, Keegan Bradley, Henley. It's like all the best because they're just firing at the pins. A guy like Hatton, who was in that lineup, it's like, is he going to blow up a lot of the time? Yes. But if he doesn't, it can look like that. And that's what you're playing for. So that one was built around that. And I'd structured my lineups really around that thought. But I do build in like different versions as well. And again, they're all with like heavy thought process that goes into them. But it's like, okay, if more people have Reed and Rose together and I don't have them in either of my big lineups, I'm definitely going to see if there's some lineups that I like that work with those two and then close it out with whoever I got or need. Whatever my thoughts are for Sunday, though, are my very prevalent thoughts into my roster construction. And I think when people try and get cute, even if they don't mean to your point of like even calling it a hedge, and that's why you were careful to say it that way, because you can't really hedge that. You can hedge stuff late. I've been in a spot where it's like you have Nick, what was the year? I forget. It was like Nick Taylor and Tommy Fleetwood in a playoff. Yep. And Nick Taylor's the underdog, and it's like for $50,000 or whatever. And I put like, I think it was like $5,000 down for the flip just to get that extra little bit because it was like 40 or 10. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But that's like a situation where it's just like, do I need to? No, it just makes you feel a little bit better and like the what ifs and all that. But that's where you can truly hedge because they're in a playoff and you know what affects your lineup exactly. In this stuff, when people try and do it, I don't see any opportunity beyond like some edge stuff. Not really meaning like around the, like it's very rough edge. It's like gray area. Like you're not really able to hedge it that much, in my opinion, with needing everything to go your way.
I liked the point you made about Reed and Rose, where like you're looking for combinations that you don't have that maybe you can get access to that would help you there. And the other thing I think you kind of alluded to that I have kind of settled on is one of my main thoughts in this kind of question, if you will, which is if I have a guy who's a low owned separator in my main slate lineup and is chalky in Showdown, like that's a guy that I definitely want to avoid because he's going to be so much more beneficial if he plays well in my main slate lineup than he would be in Showdown. So there's just no reason for me to go double down in Showdown when he's literally going to do less for me if he plays well. And then the flip side is also true. Like if he plays poorly, yes, he obviously hurts my main slate lineup, but then because he's chalky in Showdown, he actually really helps me that he played poorly there. So it just kind of works in both directions that there you don't want to overlap. And then the reverse is also true. Like, let's say, I have a 30%, Xander Schauffele in main slate or something, but now he's the contrarian pivot to Rory and Cam Young on Showdown. That's the kind of guy that, okay, now I will go play him because if he does play well, yeah, he's helping my main slate lineup potentially catch up to the Cam or the Rory lineups, but also he would then be an actual separator in Showdown. So that's when I'm more likely to kind of double down on a player. And so I think that's probably the best way to think it through. It's less about who you have and what you need, and it's more about if they play well, if they play poorly, how do they affect the two different lineups given the different ownerships across the contests?
I love all that, what you said. I'm glad we talked through that too. I know like a lot of people like, I'll get to the RBC heritage and the comments coming. I don't really care. First of all, second of all, it's like the other thing is like, it's such an important game. I know so many people, again, being in the Ship It Nation Discord. I know you're in your own over at FTN, the same thing. It's like when people don't have a good lineup over the weekend, whether they play one lineups or 150, if they really have nothing on the go, they are very interested in getting involved in round 4, but it's a place people struggle a lot because of the position placement points, because of like how many guys are too many up the board and all those different things. So I'm glad we at least chatted through it a little bit more. I know you cover more in your Discord. I've got more over at Ship It Nation with the Mastermind Project, things like that. But if, I like that topic. Let's try and get to RBC in the next 8 to 10 minutes. We do have to talk about Scottie and Morikawa. I want to hit a couple questions quick, and then let's just rapid fire them. This is for you. I'll give my two cents on it first of all. But I mean, one, unless you're building like cash game lineups these days, the ownership is typically pretty spread out. So even if you had like a 40-30 ownership in this, like it's rare, but let's say you had a 40 and a 30% guy, you're 70. It's going to be mostly like 15%ers after that for another. I mean, unless you're building that type of lineup, you're in rough shape. But otherwise, you're mostly going to be at under 100. But I don't like to do this. I just build with the optimizer, and the one I'm using will actually account for this with SaberSim. But just noting it, I don't want to say like a way where I can rule myself out personally, where it's like it has to be 80, because what if it's like a 30, a 25, and then a bunch of guys that are like 8% or 9% or something that are needed. And it's like, you can get there in different ways. I like to focus on the roster construction and then separators within the lineup. I think you've talked about it in the past, but if you want to add to that one.
Yeah, I think using total ownership, summing ownership, I think is a really, really, really bad way to do things. And it made sense like, 5 years ago when we were just kind of first understanding the concept of ownership and things of that nature on a like a full industry wide level. But it does a really bad job of creating like the balance of low owned separators and high probability plays that we're always striving for. You might luck into it by finding a range like that where, okay, you have some chalk and you have some separators, but you also can end up building lineups where like everyone in the lineup is, 15% owned or something like that. Yeah. And now you don't have the really high probability plays or the low owned separators. And so it's more about just making sure your lineup has both. And just like the optimizer you use, our optimizer over at FTN Fantasy does the same thing. Like there are actually bracketed ownership rules where you can set it where it's like, I want X amount of guys under 5% or X amount under 10%. And, no more than Y amount over 15% or 18%, whatever the numbers that you choose are. And so it's much better to do it that way. And when I do, with the rare times that I actually do use an optimizer and play MME, I make the total ownership gap as wide as possible because I don't want that influencing anything at all.
And you did say it best also there that the old way, when people did this, what was actually happening is the current standpoint just naturally. Like they were looking at it as like, oh, I got a low total ownership. But what the low total ownership did was force separators in, was force different roster constructions to make that work. And all of that already exists now. And so I'll segue it with Evan's second question, which is more up my range. You're covering the single entry, I'm covering the MME stuff, but he's talking about hand builds. So it's single entry mixed. But I think the biggest myth in all of DFS is that, and I've been on record for this forever, is that like an optimizer is only for MME. It's almost a necessity for MME, like you would said at the end here, Evan. But for somebody that's hand building, oftentimes what happens in my experience and working with people in the mentorship program and all different things, they're playing less lineups, is they say like, I got I can get it down to a certain number of golfers, but then I struggle to find the one lineup that I'm looking for. That's legit what like I talk about all the time, the new Stone 2.0 on this screen, the optimizer on the other. Here's my player pool I'm going to work with. Exclude all. Now turn on the guys I want. Now see, okay, I put the gas in the vehicle. Now let's see where it's going to take me. And I'm going to try and drive it myself. So I'm letting it build really good lineups. And then I'm saying, okay, I call it a virtual hand build. That one's going to be this way. I didn't really want like that type of combination. I kind of like that one. It skips the popular 9K range. It still projects well. It sims well, or it's got good saber score, whatever it is you're using. And then you're like, and I get the 2 value plays I like the most. That's going to be a completely different construction. I'm going to play that one for sure. And if you're only settling on one, that's your ball game, but that will help you find it. And you might pick up on something you didn't see. And also I'll say just a quick add on in other sports. I know it's the golf show, but like if you're playing baseball lineups right now, you're like, man, I really wish I could get like Atlanta and Boston together. That would be sweet. It's like, okay, well, what does that look like? Well, you can sit there and play around with it by hand for half an hour and then end up settling it. I know everybody's done this, right? They get down to their last 2 spots like, well, shit, I can't find it. Now I got to change my pitcher to someone I don't want. Or now I got to take this stupid one off and just hope for the best. The optimizer would have just had it for you. It would have taken exactly what you wanted, given you the best projected versions, let you hand pick based on like, oh man, I see an Altuve one off, but I see a Alvarez one off. I wanted him. I didn't even want Altuve. All right, I'm going to take that one. It did it for you. It's what you wanted. You still drove. You put the gas in. You put the directions in. And then you let the vehicle drive you. The optimizes the vehicle. So I really think that's important. And not many people talk about that. But I think that's something you should use it for. Any added thoughts from you?
Yeah, I like your thoughts there on the optimizer. So I'll just cover the sims part of this answer. And I think sims are also really helpful for single entries. And to me, it's not about like, I think the worst way that you can possibly use contest sims is trying to find the highest ROI and expected value possible, where the better way to do it is to answer or is to ask and answer questions that you have about lineup building. So like any question that if you're in my Discord, any 2v2 question that you take to me and say, hey, do you like this 2v2 or that 2v2 more? That kind of thing you can ask the contest sims as well and see which one it likes there. And sometimes that question can be like, oh, I already have 4 guys in my lineup who are in the early wave. So even though I like this 2v2, which is 2 guys in the afternoon wave, more than this 2v2 that turns it into a 6-0, is it worth going to the one that projects worse because I potentially get the added correlation? That's a great thing that the contest sims can help answer. Another one is like when I look at our projections this week, we have Cam Young and Russell Henley projected very similarly, both in ownership and projection. Russell Henley has the slightly higher projection. Cameron Young has the slightly higher ceiling projection. Does the rest of my lineup mean that Henley's floor advantage is better for my lineup or Cam Young's ceiling advantage better for my lineup? That's something that the contest sims can answer. So things like that, I think, are far more useful with the contest sims, and they are massively beneficial for single entry. Another like really good example would be, I'm looking here at, Ludwig Oberg is slightly lower owned than Henley, but Henley projects a little bit better across the board. Does the rest of my lineup make it worth that little bit of potential separation that I get with Oberg, or do I just want the high probability play in Russell Henley? Things like that, I think are definitely overlooked because it's the same idea. Like I think so many people think of contest sims as building a bunch of lineups, looking at the ROI and either choosing your favorite or taking the best 150 out of the 500 that you built or anything like that. And to me, the real value of contest sims is asking and answering the right questions.
And especially I'll add one point just on the ROI point you made, because that people do it all too often, especially when they only have one lineup. For example, in baseball, the best ROI is going to be the 5-man stack against the most popular pitcher. And then you get the pitchers against the most popular stacks if it fits together. And people are like, oh, I better take that. It's like, is that really good over time? Yes, because it's a high turn of events. If just these two things don't go right and really go the other way, you probably win all them. You put yourself in that upper echelon immediately to have a chance to win it all. But this might take 1,000 slate. This is over 10,000 simulations or something. Like there's no way to know that's going to happen today. And so you can take it if you want, but it's usually why it's bad to just pick the highest ROI lineup and run.
Well, not only that, but there are enough people doing that the actual like the best lineups that the sims are pointing to are affecting ownership and therefore making them not the best lineups. And so and that's especially true when you're using a sims product that isn't top notch in ownership projections and therefore not able to really accurately build the field's lineups.
Yeah. And I think sites, this is possible. We could definitely see a little bit of a lull this week, but that usually just means condensed ownership on certain spots. I'll hammer out a couple quick more, and then we'll get to, I think we'll start with Morikawa because bringing him across this week is a big topic. But real quick, my guy, Timmy Dubs, this is just an excuse for people to be able to make, because nobody knows the mindset of anybody out there. And it's like, if you just play the game, man, like we always talk about, and you know this all too well, just play the game this week. That's all you got to do. Nobody knows shit. We don't know what these guys' mindsets are and all that. So let's play DFS and see what happens. Because if one guy with a bad mindset, one guy that played last week will come in and do well. One guy that played good last week will come and do. It's like, you just never know how that stuff's going to be. I don't want to spend too much time on all these different things. Aaron,
I think real quick, I think my preferred way to answer that question is just ask if it's already baked in or not. Is it baked into the price? Is it baked into the ownership? If it isn't, then okay, maybe you let it, affect your decision. But if it is, like if there's a guy who you thought was going to be 25 or 30%, but he's 15% because nobody wants to play him because he was just in contention, then by all means go play him. Take that ownership discount and run with it. So that's the way that I like to look at it.
Names and stop worrying about the plays and just, like I said, just play the game, because it's that same thing said differently. It's just at the end of the day, you're not going to know. And I think this is a good conversation we're going to move to this week at the RBC Heritage now. So, we missed by a minute, but we were close. But Kawa was 1 to 3% last week. He was your leverage lane. Like that was an awesome call by you and came through. I think it's a much bigger conversation this week, though, because now I think, what are we seeing? Like double-digit ownership possibly, and
we've got him just under 10% at 9.5. It as he just said, like that's very, very different. 1 to 3% is massive separation potential. 10%, he's still a separator by all means, but he's not enough separation in and of himself the way he was last week.
So again, I think we talked pre-show on this, so I want to just circle back for 2 seconds. We did talk about this setup of also how the course is played, and we're going to talk. Is this a good segue for that too? Because we're going to talk course fit, anything you might see with the weather or anything like that. But just noting that, maybe do you want to tie that into Kawa first and then segue it into the other comments?
Yeah. So to understand how the different courses affected Morikawa, let's first just talk about like what Morikawa's game looked like this past week. How did he actually contend? And number one is he made a lot of putts, which is not always something that we can count on with Colin. But his ball speed was down, and that wasn't just a driver thing. It was also true of his irons. And so the types of shots that he kept playing was like, let's say he had 140 yards. Usually that might be a stock pitching wedge for him that he's launching up into the air. He was instead like taking an 8-iron and just chipping it so that he didn't have to swing as hard. Now, this works around Augusta because of how much undulation and like segmentation there is within the greens. And so if he needs to get the ball close from 140 yards by chipping an 8-iron, he can do so by landing it here and letting the contours of the green take the ball to the hole, things of that nature. You don't really get the same thing here at Hilton Head. And so I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to play the style of golf that he played last week here. And that is a big concern for me. And then the other point is like, so much of what he was able to do also was the fact that you don't always necessarily need a lot of ball speed around Augusta to get the ball to where you want, because the fairways also have that type of undulation. So like think of number 10, right? It's way downhill, turning right to left. If you hit a low draw around that corner, it's going to run and run and run. You don't need to hit a high bombing, shot around the corner or over the trees to cut off the dog leg. The ball's going to end up in a very similar spot regardless. And again, you don't get that here at Hilton Head. So I think he's a riskier play this week for higher ownership. I'm probably not interested. And as we talked about before the show, like the one thought that I think can lead to you wanting to play Morikawa and playing him with confidence is he himself talked about one of the biggest difficulties that he had last week wasn't necessarily a physical limitation, but a mental limitation, where he talked about like just having difficulty trusting the fact that he could safely swing, because the last time he swung really hard was on a practice swing on a tee box, and all of a sudden he had to pull out of the players. And so if you think that last week, and now to me, like it looked like he was still in pain and walking gingerly and all that stuff, but if you think that, you know what, last week was less of a physical limitation and more just like a mental block, and he got through a full week playing good golf, no more injury. He's going to be a little bit looser this week. He's going to be swinging more confidently. He's more healthy than we thought he was last week. That to me is the only argument where it makes sense to play him.
Good stuff on him. Do you want to anything with the weather you saw, or anything you want to take away as far as like just adding in any wave advantages like people are mentioning, or also the fact of, you know, a lot of people are talking about it in the chat. Again, I think this is particularly baked in, or like more for like if you're making betting decisions where you're picking matchups and picking on people and looking for stuff, but even then it gets baked into the line. So it's like the driving distance, not, like it's 15th. How many times have we been playing this course? Like we know that you don't need bombers here. Like literally everybody knows that. So that's why I say like some of that stuff just becomes a bit of a waste in my opinion. But anything you want to add from the weather front or the course fit front, just to round that bit out before we get to Scottie.
It does look like we could get some breezy conditions, both it's Thursday especially, a little less so on Friday, and then maybe actually Saturday morning looks really, really simple right now. It doesn't look to me like there's going to be a clear advantage. Maybe you get Thursday afternoon being the toughest conditions. It also looks like there might be like a lull on Thursday morning. But the biggest thought that I have on the wave split this week is everybody makes the cut. So typically the reason why Thursday and Friday weather is so important is because the most important thing for your player scoring equity is that he plays 72 holes instead of 36. Everyone plays 72 this week. So let's say you get the bad draw on Thursday and Friday and you're in, 40th place because of it, despite playing well. Okay, now you get the really calm Saturday morning where you can go shoot a really low score, and then the leaders have to play in breezier conditions late in the afternoon. So it just matters a lot less when you have a no-cut event. And you also have a bit of a condensed field here. It's 80-some guys instead of the 70, but still, it just matters a lot less this week, I think. And so I will be paying probably less attention to it than usual, unless we get to late tonight and all of a sudden it looks like there's going to be a very clear and significant divide by tee times, which right now I'm not seeing.
Yeah. Everyone always talks in the chat, in the comments about like, picking plays and guys that we always, sort of make fun of a little bit, but just noting it, like, please, Alex, what we need is a segment where you can tell me the exact guys that are going to play good a little bit, but not great, to get me just so that they play Saturday morning. I need to know exactly how I get there to a 6-person lineup where they only play Saturday morning, avoid the breeze on Saturday afternoon, and then have themselves in a really good position on Sunday. And also, if you can do me a favor and make sure there's lots of wind on Sunday morning, so now that they're in the lead, they also don't have to play in that. Like, just give me that, and I'll win. I'll win all the money then. That would be great. I would appreciate it. So I think it's important just to think about. But I will say, like, to another final comment on, and then let's talk about Scottie and no cut. Like, to me, that's where all the strategy lives this week. You were already segment lives. Get some live news here maybe soon. We'll see. But just noticing it again, like no cut strategy. Looking for different types of roster constructions and builds, being willing to take on a little bit more of risk when we want down low. All that stuff's going to matter way more. Like people are always like, oh, pick the dudes that are lower owned or all this stuff. It's all factored in to what we're doing. But honestly, if you had a good segment and you don't believe my statement that nobody knows shit, like we know some stuff, we're trying to put it together. But if you truly know like everything, honestly, it's not even still best suited for a DFS lineup, because you still have to find then the right 6 that fit together under the salary conditions. There's so many more variables in DFS of like streaks, eagles, all 4 under 70. Like there's tons of different ways that can affect you. You could have a lineup that finishes with 4 guys in the top 10 and 2 in the top 20 and be nowhere near the top, because it's like you didn't quite get the winner, or you didn't get that. And you could win a lot more knowing that stuff in advance on placement bets, outright bets, matchup bets, things like that. So if you actually knew that stuff, it's better applied, in my opinion, for golf betting, pick'ems, props, etc. Not my lane, just noting it. Like, and not about my leverage lane, literally not my lane at all. I'm focused on DFS strategy and education. But my point being, It's all that. That's why that stuff, like everything we talked about at the top of the show about not being able to control your sweat. We don't get to hit the shots. We have no idea.
Yeah.
We just put ourselves in position to get those 1 in 20 shots at $1 million on Sunday and hope that eventually goes our way. That's really what we're trying to do. So let's talk about no cut strategy and let's use it to bring up Scottie Scheffler, because one note on Scottie this week is they did dip his price some.
Yes.
But also, I mean, now you're talking about elite golfers like Sung Jae Im at 6,700. Anyone who knows me, it's an inside joke, but just noting it more. There's like Keegan, Homa, people like, Woodland, McCarty, Sung Jae, Novak, Wallace, Jordan Smith, Putnam, all these guys people have seen lately, and in some cases do stuff. That's in the upper sixes, all those guys I just named. Then there's also tons of love for guys like Norin and Harmon and Yella and Poston and Stevens. They don't even cross 7,200. So it is very, very easy to build a Scottie lineup this week, with the interesting note that I still think people like Fitzpatrick, Young, Henley coming off the week that they just had. So go ahead. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, my answer here is actually a little bit less just like overall strategy and more specific to just this week. And the one place I'll deviate from that is I think that the popular convention here is that no cut events make it easier to do studs and duds because the duds that you're using are going to play 72 holes instead of 36. And that's definitely true. But think of all of the conversations we've had about Scottie this year and about Scottie lineups specifically. And what is the number one thing that we've said about those lineups is that they lack the ceiling that you need for the entire lineup to be competitive. And I think that still holds a little bit true. Yeah, he did jump down in price to 13.5 instead of 14, but that all that moves the needle on is that means that the remaining 5 spots, instead of an average of 7,200, you get an average of 7,300. Mm-hmm. And you look at the names down there, and the names down there are still not guys with a ton of win equity. Connors and Keegan, I think, are a little bit of an exception. You can say Sung Jae's a bit of an exception. So like you are going to build lineups with Scottie that you do feel good about. He is very usable in that regard, but you're not getting the win equity from those guys that you're getting from Minwoo Lee or Sepp Straka or Chris Gotterup or Jacob Bridgman in this, upper 7s, low 8s, let alone the 9K range where you're getting, Russell Henley, Cam Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, those guys that we just talked about, Tommy Fleetwood, Xander Schauffele. So the rest of the lineup, you're definitely still sacrificing win equity. And you're basically saying like, I think it goes back to this idea of, is Scottie a separator or not? And I think that right now you can make the argument that he is. Like, we only have him projected for 13.5% in single entries, which absolutely would make him a separator. So you give his 20% win equity the potential to separate your lineup. And now Scottie lineups do become a little bit interesting. And so to me, like the more interesting part of this decision isn't the fact that he went from 14 to 13.5. It's that his ownership still might be low. And for the first time last week in at least like a month, we saw Scottie play really, really good, typical Scottie Scheffler golf. And that is why, if I have some interest in him this week, it's for that reason. It's because, okay, he looks like Scottie again, and now I'm interested at low ownership.
I think the ownership is the key that you mentioned, because I still see him like sub 15. I think that's going to happen, even though, because it's like the bit of a price dip I just mentioned. But like I get that it's easy to plan, but all I'll say is like there's a lot of people I see already building these, and it's like Scottie, Norin, Stevens, someone else. It's like you have the worst Scottie lineup in the world. Whether it comes through or not, we can't control. But like you're just building the same as everyone else. I built the Scottie lineup. It was like Scottie, Fitzpatrick, and 3 6K guys. Like, let's roll. And like they're all lower owned. Like if I'm looking at stuff early on, I'm just saying there's so many different ways that you could do it. But if you are going Scottie because of everything Alex just said, and I agree with, it's like I'm still looking at the total construction. And I think a lot of people, Alex, just say, well, kind of hear what they're saying. I don't think he has the ceiling either, but I'm going to build one Scottie lineup in case, and they burn 20 of their $100, which is 20% of their, again, you can extrapolate it up or down. Are you going to put that $200 of your 1,000 or $20 versus your 100 and say, I'll build the worst Scottie lineup possible just because like if it came through, it's this way? I'd want to get it different if I'm doing that.
To that point, like I think a really good rule of thumb is simply, if you ever catch yourself saying just in case as a reason for building a lineup that you're building, stop it. Do something else, right? The reason should always be, this gives me the best chance to have a really good week. Not just in case, but this is my best possible path to having a great week. And I think, like I said, I just think that's a really good rule of thumb. Another distinction I want to make is when we talk about how easy it is to build Scottie lineups, I think there are two different meanings here. Number one is, what do Scottie lineups look like? Do you have conviction on everyone in a Scottie lineup? And I think that in that sense, it is easy to build Scottie lineups this week. But the other sense is it easy to build him where you're also playing most of the guys that you really, really want to play this week? And in that sense, it's still really difficult because, as we talked about, like, most people are going to have conviction on Fitzpatrick or Cam Young or Henley or Oberg or Siwoo or McIntyre, Mav McNeely, Minwoo, Akshay Bhatia. And those guys, especially those first few names, are really difficult to impossible to play in Scottie lineups. And so,
yeah,
in that regard, it's still difficult to build Scottie lineups just because once you click him, you are Xing out so many guys that a lot of people want to play.
Yeah. So yeah, said differently, like, it's easy to build Scottie lineups that might be horrible, but but if you have conviction on that, then roll them. But it's like you said, or look to get different and take on some more risk at the bottom. You're already getting Scottie the separator. You can get some of those guys up the middle. I would really like that. What I'd want to be doing myself is looking to avoid like Scottie with a bunch of guys 7 to 7,500. And you're like, well, it's kind of have to do that. Like, that's his price. No, that's where the average puts you if you just land in that range. And there's a ton of good values, and projections would put you in that range for a good Scottie lineup on that end. But those are median projections, and it's a no cut, and there's ability to take on risk where you can make it work. And someone will have it. If Scottie wins at this event, smaller field, no cut, it's not always guaranteed because those 8, 9K guys could really come through, but also in a larger field tournament, the MME side that I'm talking about, even with leveraging, there's still going to be angles where somebody probably gets to that. So I just think it's important. Toot said that was good advice, great advice from you. I got to know though, quickly, not to bring a full other segment into it, but the maintenance man battle. What is the maintenance man battle over here?
Oh, it's from our show yesterday with Pat. There was we had a long fire alarm situation the day before. And apparently there was like a gas leak. And so maintenance was making the rounds yesterday, just making sure like everyone's gas stuff is all in order, like with the stoves and stuff. And they knocked on the door, and I muted. I thought I was muting myself, but you know how when Pat sends you the links, he sends you 2 links, and one is so you can see everything, one's just for you. Yeah. And so I was in the wrong tab, and I wasn't actually muting myself when I, yelled to the maintenance man, like, come back, I'm on a call or on a show, whatever. And so it happened like 3 times because for some reason they knocked like 4 times in a row, even though I said the same thing over and over. So it was that was funny. I thought I was muted, and all of a sudden Pat says it, and I was like, you could hear me? Oh shit! And then it was.
Did you get funny?
Fortunately, Fortunately, Pat is the kind of guy who always sees the humor in those situations. So that was so good. That was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't listen, but if you were getting heated or something with the guy, like, come back later, it's like that. I got to go listen now, because I think it's like you're always so nice and humble and quiet and composed, and it's like you're probably like, buddy, why are you knocking on my door so much?
That's exactly what happened. So like the last time I said it, I there was some irritation in my voice pretty clearly, and I think that's what Pat really liked to hear, and then that's when I realized, oh damn it,
he's human, folks. He's human.
Which also, by the way, meant that I was accidentally just yelling while Pat was speaking. So it was just like I said, I'm very appreciative that Pat saw the humor in it.
Yeah, you don't want to catch the wrath of Pat Mayo, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Been there, done that, but yeah. All right, let's say this. Oh yeah, someone Alex did say please. I believe that.
At least I did the first few times. I don't know if I did the last time.
The third time was great, and by great, I'm sure Ross means it was great for watching and viewing. Yeah. But back to the RBC Heritage. Appreciate a good Alex story. That's a good one too. So let's talk about the chalk build then, and what we see with that. Kind of gave our takes on Morikawa, the Scottie situation, the no cut strategy, all of that, and different roster constructions. But what are you then seeing as the sort of chalk build? And I'm going to try on my screen. I won't bring it up here, but I'll just build as we go. You can kind of guideline me to where you think it lands.
So yeah, I think the starting point, as we've kind of seen, is the high end of the starting point is going to be Xander, and then the bulk of lineups are going to start with some combination of Fitzpatrick, Cam Young, Russell Henley, maybe some Ludwig Oberg, and then there's like a secondary tier of Siwoo, McIntyre, and Mav, and then almost every type of lineup construction can use either Minwoo Lee and or Akshay Bhatia. So those guys are going to be popular. And then whether you're using Scottie or you're trying to jam in as many of those expensive guys as possible, Those who do need to go to the 6K range or, really low sevens, I see them going to Norin, Connors, Keegan, and Sung J M. And beyond that, like I know I just named a bunch of players, but beyond that, there's no one who's going to be like crazy owned. And so it's really just like these little pockets that you just have to be aware of and make sure that you're not going from one pocket to the next and just using all those guys.
Yeah. Do you think an 8K guy lands in there at all very often, or do you think it's going to be like the bottom to the top? And if it's the top, it's kind of like maybe Xander, but more likely Fitz. Like I could see like something like that, right? Like you could do what does Fitz and Henley do? The problem is I can't see it like at the bottom. I think Norin and Stevens are super popular. I think Min Woo as well, but it's like, how does the build get to Min Woo without stopping in the 8K range? Because another 9K guy leaves you there. So it's like, if I took Min Woo out, who's the other guy cheap enough? I guess, what does Henley and Young look like? That's 6.3. So I don't think it's going that low. So it's probably one of those two, but even that's 8.1K. Is there an 8K guy, I guess, is the question, that you see being more popular than the others?
So we've kind of had this theme a bunch lately, right? Where we've said, there's so much attention in the 9K range and so much in the 7K range that the 8K range is going to go overlooked. I don't think we have that to the same extent this week, but it is still true that the main pockets are upper sevens and then like mid to upper nines to low tens. So there is still a path where, like, if you just go in on that 8K range, you're going to be different, where instead of having 2 9s and 2 7s, you have 4 8s. That's still going to be a very unique construction, even if some of those players aren't quite as low owned as what we've gotten in the past few weeks, because like almost everyone in the 8K range was just totally overlooked. And it was so hard to land in that range if you were playing kind of popular high probability plays.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to sort of go through here and just see. But it looks like the closest version, then people can mess around with it later, is like something that starts with like a Cam Young Henley, kind of fits your Norin, Stevens, whatever else in there. And you might have to pick an 8K guy, but then it gets you like one of your Min Woos or whatever. So like that kind of to me at least, is the starting point of it. And then wherever you want to go from there, obviously your a McNeely or a Min Woo can drop way down to like a Connors or a Sung Jae, and now all of a sudden you're popping up to another 9K guy or whatever. So it's like tons of different things you can look at from that perspective. But I think like that's just the main starting point. So let's talk about how to leverage this.
One quick thing there. And actually, this kind of answers that exact question of like, okay, well, what can you do to leverage the common build? Going back to one of the questions earlier about total ownership, this is another reason why total ownership doesn't tell the whole story, because you're not looking at, okay, well, do I have unique combinations of players? And so as I look at our single entry ownership right now, like I'm seeing the combination of Oberg and Minwoo Lee or Akshay Bhatia is very similar to the combination in ownership, not just the sum, but of both players, to Siwoo Kim and Robert McIntyre. Similar price as well. But I would venture a guess that the combination of Siwoo and Bobby Mack is a lot more contrarian than the combination of Oberg and Minwoo Lee, just because one is the preferred roster construction where it's just so much more natural to go from 9K to upper 7K than having two of those 8K guys. And so you might get a combinatorial ownership in terms of like how many people have this exact combination with that 8K range, even though the total ownership for those two pairs is going to be pretty close to identical. Yeah.
And we also just gave like that ties in exactly to the other point of like, again, we were barely seeing an 8K guy in most lineups, maybe one though at most. And that immediately injects two into your lineup just from that one move. And it's like that again, you're getting less of the ownership, less combinatorial ownership, and you're getting a unique construction. That's what we're trying to say again about like, who does anyone know if Ludwig and Min Woo is going to beat Robert McIntyre and Siwoo this week? We don't. We actually won't know even till Sunday. And a lot of people declare things. Oh, by the way, Cam Young, dead on day one. The guy, I don't know how he came back from dead. He was buried alive on Thursday and then came back and almost won the Masters on Sunday. It's golf. It's like that type of stuff can happen, but nobody will know till it ends. But that's why the other side of it, to your point that you just made, matters so much more. It's like, man, that's just potentially, because again, your other pieces in your lineup matter, but that's where you can find these angles of like, man, that's quite the difference I'm getting now on all three angles. And it allows me to still play a Fitzpatrick and a Norin or something like that's different than, that's the same as everybody else, but in a different way. Again, teach their own, but just showing that off. I definitely think something like that is important to think about when you're looking at your roster construction here. So I think multiple 8K guys for sure. I think also anything, I mean, this is more obvious, but just noting it, anything that skips the 9Ks is going to be, super low owned because it's got to be Cameron Young, Henley, Ludwig, Morikawa. And don't forget, I mean, this always gets slept on at these types of events at this price tag. Cantlay was like the best ball striker in the field on Saturday. I know he didn't help people very much on Sunday, but it was the bogey-free 67 or whatever on Saturday. And then people are also going to look and say, well, I know who plays good around here. Cantlay's coming in off a 12th, had a 7th before that, but 13th, 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 7th, 3rd, like miscut once in there. Like he plays good here. So the 9K range is just going to be extremely popular regardless of how you look at it.
Agree with that for sure.
So one thing you said about Xander, and I was just pulling this up quickly here, just not to spend too much time on it, but if you pull up like Xander, it leaves you 7.9K average. I think this is where it gets really interesting too, because I'm just going to mess around for 2 seconds, but like the Siwoo Bobby Mack factor lands you in that mid seven. It's right between 7 and 7,500. You have 7,300 average, give or take. So just between give or take. But I think that's where you're already different enough if you wanted to do something with these popular guys. But again, I don't think you're offline at all by saying, what does it look like if I add a Sepp Straka and now I got 7K flat left, and then I go with like a 6,500 and a 75, you know what I mean? Like you can mix it up and still get different while doing that and just have a completely different construction. It skips the 9Ks. It doesn't have Ludwig and Minwoo or any combo of that, but it has the Siwoo McIntyre we talked about. You still have X. You're not getting up to Scottie, but you're also not punting like 3 6K guys here or needing to. And even if you liked 2 6K guys, let's say you were interested in a couple 6K guys, you could be back up to another 8K guy, and you skip the 9s and the 7s, and you got 2 6Ks instead of 3 or more with like that Scottie version we said, where you can actually play Scottie and a top guy. And then you got 3 guys up the middle that you can play here, like a Bridgman or something like that, or a Justin Thomas or whatever you feel is up your range there. It's like 6-7 points off the other lineup that we just had is like the chalk build. It's a completely different construction. It fades ranges. The ownerships are actually similar currently. It's not that crazy difference, but it's such a different construction and starting point and everything across the board. So little things like that are what I'd be looking at, especially if you're playing just one lineup. But in my player pool for MME, definitely the same thing.
Yeah, I'm between 2 leverage lanes, and one of them is very similar to what you just talked about.
Yeah, I just think it's like the way the tournament sets up is you can still. I also think like there's something to be said too, by the way. And so I'll say 2 things in one here. What I was just about to say is like, let's say let me pull this up real quick for 6,900. I'm just going to use like the upper 6s for this example. But if you go to like Keegan for a second, who probably gets like the boost in the high stakes and whatnot, but like let's just use, I don't know, Homa, Gary Woodland, maybe Matt Wallace, somebody like that. Anyway, there's guys in the upper 6s that are going to get, some clicks, but not nearly what they could. And some of them actually played well last week or fired at pins or did different things. If that's what you're using as your gauge. So it's like just my point of you can still have guys in that range that not everyone can be super popular. Obviously, if you're adding in Stevens and Noren, we know they're going to be popular, and that's what's going to get plugged in by projections in most cases. But there is guys that you might hear talked about that just still can't get clicked enough that can still get you that unique construction that builds you into that spot and still gives you upside. And that's where people get frustrated when they're like, damn, knew I should have went back to this guy, or that guy continued to play well. Like I should have, I should have thought of that. And that's what I was trying to use. I was looking at some of the guys down there just to compare, but I was trying to see like Stevens is going to be based off last week and the week before, but also hasn't done well here. I was trying to look at somebody that has done well here and like didn't do like how much do you think JT Poston gets owned this week at 7,200?
I don't think much. We've got him at 5%, and it's the same sort of thing that we've talked about, right? Like even in this smaller field, look how many guys there are between 7 and 7.5K. Like it's just when you go down to this range, everybody has so many options to choose from, and everybody has like slightly different preferences. So yeah, there are going to be guys who are preferred by more than others. Noren, Connors, Keegan, but none of these guys I think are going to get out of control. And especially like that secondary level, it's going to be really hard in a week like this with pricing like this for someone who we think is going to be 5% to get to 10 to 15 just because there are so many of those guys who are 5. Where like, if we were looking at a very different pricing, and instead of having looks like something like, I don't know, 15 guys between 7 and 7.5, if we had 5 of them and 4 of them were popular and one of them was 5%, okay, now it's like there's a very real chance that this guy projected at 5%, everyone's going to say, I want the contrarian guy in this range, and they take him. But it's not the case. If you want a 5% guy between 7 and 7.5K, you've got like 8 to 10 options. And so the likelihood that everyone chooses the same quote unquote sneaky guy to the point where he's not sneaky anymore is just really, really low.
Yeah, and I would use that's a better one. I think is probably Noren. So here's a prime example for me. Like JT Poston could be 1/3 the ownership of Noren, but you're still hearing people mention JT Poston's name, like they're betting him or something, or it's getting mentioned. But just on the way it's going with the optimizer, the projections, the clicks, whatever you want to say of how people are getting there, I think more people could end up on Noren. And if you really took, and I'm not a course history truther, I'm just noting this, like of the idea of this concept, it's like JT Poston didn't play last week. Noren finished 30th. Noren's upside has been 12th place 6 events ago. Besides that, it's like 24th or worse and missed cuts and 30ths and like very mediocre scores and results. And some of those are in better fields. If you look even 2 weeks ago when Poston played, he beat Noren. He was better than Noren that week in the same event. It's 21st to Noren's 30th. And then you look at Poston here, 11th, 5th, 3rd, 8th, 6th, couple of missed cuts. Like he can have that upside event here. Noren hasn't even played it the last 3 years. That could be 1/3 the ownership. And it's not just about that. You can play them both together. If you think Noren's a really good value and you want to kind of cut into it in a different way, play them both. I'm just saying when people are looking at it, it's not in a vacuum, but some of those thoughts can be built around that when you're kind of looking for that zone. And I honestly don't see where Poston gets the ownership that Noren does. Right now, I'm seeing like it could even be 1/3. So I think little things like that, when people are trying to figure it out, are just, look at the rest of your lineup and use that to guideline your decision. If you're already super chalky or popular or on a very popular construction up top, I would find it really difficult to finish it out with Noren because I'm calculating for the whole entire lineup and not just Noren the play. But I'd feel just as fine if I had to make the decision for someone out there with single entry to say, you know what? I like this construction. I land in this range, but I actually like Poston, and it looks like I'm going to get him at 1/3 the ownership. So sweet, I'm going to plug him in. I'd be good with that because you're still considering all of those factors and then finalizing with that thought. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add on leveraging the common build this week, but I think we kind of hammered that one out. Anything else you want to
add? Just one more thing. Like I think the Minwoo and Akshay plays, like we've got them at 19 and 19.7% right now. There's a chance that those guys end up like 30% in some contests. And so if I had to like point to 2 chalk guys that I know I'm going to fade, it's probably those 2 because there are good options around them. You can go Harris English, Chris Gotterup, Ricky Fowler, Sahith Theegala, Michael Thorbjornsen. Like there are plenty of guys who have played really good golf this year, and you're going to get a massive ownership discount in comparison to those guys. Sepp Straka, Jason Day as well. Even Bridgman up at 82, like he still counts as a pivot as well. Yeah,
Bridgman's interesting as well up there too, like you said, in that sort of the 8K range lineup build. But again, those lineups still come in very close in even median projection. And it is insane. And ownership is actually kind of similar for, again, going back to total ownership, why we kind of had this whole thing come together by the end of it all. It's like, that's why it's not really worth that conversation. It's like there's lineups with Xander, 3 8K guys and 2 6K options that fade the entire 7K chalk of whoever it might be, Noren, Stevens, Akshay, Minwoo to start, at least, if not others. And then it also fades all those 9K guys, and it even fades Fitzpatrick because they're going to Xander instead. So it's like little things like that. Obviously, if Xander's your dude, you get, or if Fitz is your dude, you could put him in for Xander or whatever. There's tons of ways to get different, but just kind of a few to throw that out there. So one and done. What did we end up going Hatton last week and then just lucking out at the end, or what did we decide on in the end? I forget.
Let me check. Who did we go with?
I think
I know you know how to check this.
Yeah, I actually had Rory in my.
We're so bad at this. We went Cam Smith.
Yeah, I remember this conversation now. Yeah. So
yeah, I had Reed in one, I had Hatton in another, and then I had Cam Smith in ours. So it was
a tale of two stories with Papa Tambo. He went with Bryson and got screwed on the last. By the way, that cost me a 6-6 in the main event last week that still finished like 63rd. That was like, I still min cashed it, but that was bad. And I had Rory and got the win. So I'm up to 560. Even with a Rory win, I'm up to 560 first place. That's how hard one and done is. What are you thinking for this week, or what are your thoughts on this one?
My biggest thoughts for this week is that we have a really extreme course fit model where distance is less predictive than usual, which is an interesting note when you think of my leverage lane, which obviously we're going to get to. Accuracy off the tee is extremely predictive. It's over 100% more predictive than usual. And then you also get a boost to both around the green and putting, with accuracy and around the green being the two highest separating skill sets at this golf course. So my first thought is, can we find somebody like near the top who's one of the best players in this field that we give him a lot more win equity at this golf course than at most of the signature events? Like, we're about to go to Miami and Quail Hollow, two courses where distance is massively rewarded. So I think that's kind of the main thought I want to lean into, which points us to Henley or Tommy Fleetwood or Matt Fitzpatrick. Colin Morikawa, if he was healthy, I think would be a good play. But those are the kind of names that I think I really point to. First, Robert McIntyre is another one. Siwoo Kim, those kinds of players.
All right. I like probably, I don't know. I was kind of feeling the Siwoo call, but what do you think for ours?
My first thought was Henley, but I like Siwoo quite a bit as well. I'd be interested in Tommy, of those names, I actually don't have that strong of a preference this week. So if you have a strong preference to Siwoo, I'm good with that.
No, actually, I mean, that was before you brought up names that made me. So first of all, like Henley or Tommy wearing this plaid jacket, it looks like that it's built for them. Like it just like with his hair hanging out. So the green jacket, I don't see it as much. I see the green jacket actually on Henley. I know he's a Georgia boy. Maybe that's why I'm thinking of that. But it's like, if I saw anything there, but Tommy, he can wear a plaid jacket. So I don't know, like what else are we saving? Is there any thought, just quickly to round out one and done, on saving Tommy versus saving Henley? Like where that we might use them at, differences of that. I can't think of a lot. That's why I'm asking you, but I'm saying that I liked Aaron's comment. Blickle just described Henley. Truthfully, you did.
Yes, I did. I 100% did, which is why I think Henley is my lean as well. Where Tommy's game is a little bit more diverse, and they're actually very similar in all strokes gained categories. The biggest difference is that Tommy, despite losing strokes with his distance to this field, still gains about 0.2 strokes per round with his distance over Russell Henley. All of their other categories, like let's see, Henley's 0.05 better in accuracy, 0.07 better in approach, 0.02 worse in around the green, 0.04 better in putting. It's like the only place, I mean, these guys are incredibly similar golfers. The only place that they really separate is distance. And obviously this is a course that mutes distance. So this is probably a better place to use Henley, where we're more likely to, have a place that we really want to use Tommy later.
Yeah, I like that. So let's do that. Let's use Henley, save Tommy for a minute from now. And then also, what about betting segment, the betting breakdown? I know, I think you had one that you posted in your Discord. Maybe we go back to back, because the Henley top three each way got there last week. It had to be split a little bit, but still better than what people thought it was going to be. I can certainly tell you that.
Yeah, man, it's so frustrating that he didn't get more out of it, because he could have made putts on Sunday. But when I think of like how he ruined his chances this week, it was more Thursday and Friday. He played really good golf Thursday and Friday, but every single time he made a birdie, he immediately gave it back. So if he could have just strung like holes together instead, he would have been in striking distance before he had the nuclear weekend, instead of needing a nuclear weekend just to get within striking distance. So it really could have been even better, but it was awesome to see how well he played, given how confident, I was in him. And this week, the only outright I have so far is Minwoo Lee. There is a chance I'm going to add to it, but I haven't found anything else yet that I really like. But honestly, like of all the thoughts that I had last week, one of the ones that I'm most proud of is actually the Minwoo Lee fade, because it was such like just kind of like a supporting evidence, if you will, of one of my biggest thoughts about PGA DFS in general, which is people don't care enough about long-term form, and the idea that who you are really comes to fruition in major championships and at the Masters. And Minwoo Lee has been awesome this year with his approach play. It's been like one of the most improved skill sets on tour, but who he is still a guy who can be vulnerable at times with his approach play. You put him on a golf course, and this is the other thing that I really liked about it, is like it also meshed with the course fit emphasis that I apply to my PGA DFS thoughts and process, because Augusta is a course that rewards and exposes approach play maybe more than any other. And so you take a guy who he is someone vulnerable with the approach play. And even though he's been awesome this year, he really got exposed in that way last week. And so avoided that chalk. But now you get to a different golf course, one where approach play isn't a separating skill set. It's accuracy and around the green. He's more accurate than people realize, and his around the green play and putting are obviously both phenomenal. And I just think this is a really good spot for him. He's one of the most volatile players. And so he has a really, really good win odds because of it. We've got him at 2%. And with that kind of special each way over at Bet365, you can get him at 100 to 1. So literally, 100% of expected value here. I love the outright here on Minwoo.
Yeah, gonna be tailing after last week at the Henley stuff. And I think one point you made too, just on a side note of like the long-term talent that people seem to ignore. Obviously, there's a course fit at Augusta National Golf Club, and we know this, just in general, but like Rory, Scottie, sure. But like after that, if you take like the Henley, Hatton, Rose every year, it seems now, the Burns, but listen to this. So these are the names that I'm talking about though, like Sam Burns, Max Homa, Jason Day, Patrick Reed, Hideki Matsuyama, Patrick Cantlay, Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka. This is the leaderboard I'm reading out. Victor Hovland, Matt Fitzpatrick. It's like, they've all been good. We know their names. Do you know, like most of those guys, I'm not going to pull it up again from last week, but most of those guys did not have very much ownership attached to them at all. And it's just like, again, going back to projections, what coming in, all that stuff, versus saying, yeah, but these guys are really good golfers long-term, and this could be where it spikes, and this could be where it comes through, and that can mean a lot to your lineups. Like, I don't know how many people would have a Rory, Hatton, Burns, Jason Day, Cantlay, Spieth lineup last week. I don't even know exactly how much that fits, but I'm just saying like that would have been a really good lineup. And it's like, when you look back at it and say, and I talked about this a ton in our shows we did last week with Pat and here, of like, couldn't you see a leaderboard that just has these names across it? Like the Reeds, the Hattons, the Roses, all that stuff. Somebody tagged me, was like, isn't that the lineup you named? Not quite, because Rory would have had to fit in there somewhere, but just noting we knew he could be up there. We knew Scottie could be up there, and they came 1-2. Shout out to our guy, Matt Gannon, by the way, hit the dual forecast. That's pretty incredible. But just noting it, that's what I'm saying about some of this stuff sometimes, where people just completely go away with it, and their process is just like ignoring that and going right back to the same thing that didn't work or hasn't worked for them. You got to think about those things as well. So I really like that point on the long-term form. All right. Go to the leverage lane. I'll let you roll first here. I'm going to save mine till the end. I kind of got to it as we went along, but I'm feeling good about this one. So what's yours?
Yeah, I like this one too. And it's really contrarian, and it goes against course fit a little bit, where I want to lean into guys who are long off the tee this week. Now, what I'm not saying here is that I'm going to go look at driving distance and I'm going to pick my lineup based on driving distance. No, what I'm looking for is guys who project well and hit the ball far. Why? Because the field likes prototypes. They like thinking, okay, this is a course where accuracy matters more than the distance. So I want to find someone who fits both of those things, right? He is accurate and he is not long. But there are guys who are accurate and long. And the other variable here is that this is a no-cut event. And so when, like, one of the biggest adjustments that I make is when we have no-cut events, I care more about volatility. I want that added volatility, and I care more about scoring. And birdie rate over expectation is heavily correlated with driving distance. The further you hit the ball, the more likely you are to make more birdies than you're expected. Pretty intuitive relationship there. And so when I look at like the highest birdie rate over expectation guys, Ludwig Åberg, Cameron Young, Sam Burns, Jake Knapp, Justin Thomas, Minwoo Lee, Nikolai Højgaard, Michael Thorbjornsen, Wyndham Clark, all these guys hit the ball far, right? And so I'm leaning into like this counterintuitive narrative, because even though they fit the golf course a little bit worse than they otherwise would if the golf course rewarded distance, they still can fit the golf course well. You're getting an ownership discount. And because it's a no-cut event, they also like fit the event really well, even if they don't fit the course as well. So I really like those guys. And as I look through the GPP scores, like a lot of these guys are already just standing out as under-owned plays. So that's going to be my leverage lane.
Yeah, I like a couple things there, just in general of the concept, but also like then there's like something reminded me of like who was it last week? Somebody posted about this guy. It was like Brennan, I think it was, right? They're like, wow, Brennan's not a one-trick pony. And this week, I think he's $6,400 and no one's talking about him at all. But it's like, it's not like he did anything too crazy, but it's like just an example where if you can find a guy that you like him, 24th last week, 28th the time out before that, 26th the time before that, like he's had opportunities. So it's like, it depends on who it is, not just about the play, but the concept. If it gets you there and then you can find a construction that it fits well with, you could all, even if some of your guys are owned, like I think you mentioned like Oberg and Young, fine, they're going to have some ownership attached to them, but are they going to be attached to Brennan and guys like that? Yeah. No. So even when you are landing there, you can make it work. So I'll go to my lane. I was going to, do a couple. I don't want to commit to the first one just because then I'm, it's only Wednesday more after like lunchtime basically. So for me, I don't want to commit. I was going to say Tommy Tartan up top just goes all too well. And I do actually have interest in him, especially just being $100 more than Fitz. He could still end up my guy, but what I'm going to definitely say in my $200 single entry, I'm going to fade the 9K range. I know you just mentioned a bunch of good guys in there that you can go that way, but I just think I really have interest in one or two of the guys above Fitz or above. And then I really like that 8K range for guys that can win this tournament. So the winner can come from there. And then also it almost naturally puts me away from the chalk down low in a not to purposely avoid it, but I also could just land there because most of even like a Norin or a Stevens or any of those guys you choose to like down there, most of them are going to fit into all those different constructions, but a lot of them will be in with at least one 9K guy. That would be another way that I can alleviate myself. So, you played that loser chalk Alex Norin. You told me he was shit because of this, that, and the other. I'm giving examples, and I'm probably don't end up on him in this lineup, being honest, but just noting it of that's a way that you can still get away with that because that's how people always try and put chalk in the same bucket. It's like this chalk versus that chalk. And at the end of the day, if I got a 7K guy that's somewhat chalky, but then I'm completely different in construction, low owned guys throughout, all that other stuff. It's not who you play. It's how you play him. That's where he fits in. At the other side of it, if you got a guy up top that's chalky, you might not want to continue that path down the bottom. So this is what, Aaron said. Blickle mentions 4 guys. I knew that as soon as he said it, I was like, that's that. But also I have 150 lineups that I'm playing elsewhere. So it's like, I'm talking about my $200 single entry that I'm playing this week. I've looked at multiple variations. Not one yet has included a 9K guy. It's the way I'm building. It's what I like this week. It's how I see the slate coming to me. Everybody's lane is different. And that's the benefit and the point of it.
Not only that, but like what we said didn't contradict each other, because what I said was like, I'm looking for guys who are long, but also like fit everything else that I'm looking for. I will go look at Cam Young and he's got one of the worst GPP scores on the slate because of his ownership. So even though he fits the type of player that I'm looking for, I'm not going to make that decision based on his GPP score.
Yeah, I also think like Xander would fit your description quite fine. And
yes,
it's like, I can roll with him. If you look at Fitzpatrick, what's been the conversation around him? And this is another funny one because like the short-term stuff might not show it as much, but like Fitzpatrick's been working on his driving distance. He's been working on his irons and stuff like that. So it's like different factors could all still fall into it. It's just my preference for the week for my main single entry. I've made a few different variations, just looking at things early, not committed to anything yet, but none have involved a 9K yet. But, like I said, Tommy Tartan could be a thing as well. I could definitely see that. He doesn't fully fit your mold of what you stated, but I said, like, I think it would be Xander is the one that I kind of like. And that's why I didn't want to commit to Tommy up there. And I always take Alex's stuff very seriously. It's why I love doing shows with him. That's why it's great to have this show every week and get to chat through things because you catch on to a little bit more while helping everybody else doing it at the same time. But I had Henley in my main event last week. So I know all the tilt you were talking about of the first 2 days of like, make one, give it back. Okay, it's like there any way you could make 2 or 3 or like anything here?
And
like,
then
please.
The really funny part was he then made 2 in a row and then made 2 bogeys in a row. I was like, God damn it, you idiot.
At least he was consistent with equal. He's equal provider, but it was just brutal to watch that. And like I said, to have him come all the way back and get there. But that's part of the game we play and why we love it so much. I think, again, yes, this week could be a week where others are kind of leaving this in the dust and they're focused on like coming off the Masters. It's this week and then a partners event, like I said, from a DFS perspective. So come back for is the Cadillac Championship a signature this year? It's like a new event. Isn't it like a new, I don't even remember what one it replaced, but it's at Doral, I think, right?
Yeah. It's just an additional signature event instead of the Mexico Open at this time of year.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. That's good, man. Anything else you want to talk about? The live news did not come out, or I would have held you up like a few minutes longer just to try and discuss it. It sounds like they're, having this big press conference today and going to figure everything out. And then we'll probably get an announcement, but yeah, we'll see what else do you want to talk about?
Yeah. The only thing for me is, as is typical of me, I have not remembered to drop the Masters promo from last week. So if anyone still wants to get in to the Discord with 50% off, Masters 50 is still going to work as a promo code this week, and doing some really cool stuff in there. Added contention performance score, which I talked about yesterday with Pat. If anyone wants to kind of go back and watch the beginning of that show, or just check it out in the Discord, and some MLB explosion analysis, props and pick'em has been awesome. So it's a great time to get in. Masters 50% off.
Yeah, definitely get in. And I think the funny thing is, someone said earlier about like your contention scores. I would have known that my Lowry wasn't in any of my Millie Maker sweats. So I also knew Lowry would not do anything on a Sunday. Surprise. I actually don't think he made any of my Showdown lineups either because of that, because it's just brutal to watch him on those days usually. But in general, that is funny now because people are going to like have lineups in contention on Sunday and be like, oh shit, I got to wait for those contention scores to drop to see is my lineup really as good as I think it is? Yeah. And then if they're not in there, they're going to be thinking, oh man, this is really good. And then they don't have to play. And then back to our round 4 conversation of, I don't need to play him anymore. I've already in contention and he's good when in contention. I liked your point too. We still, of course, left a Masters promo up to let people get in, but the bigger promo we've got going on right now at Ship It Nation, if you guys want to use it, the Stone 2 just dropped, the Stone version 2.0. That is completely interactive. The stage 1 of that, we've got a lot of things coming with that tool, but I think it's the best tool in DFS. People love using it. It was a legacy piece brought over in the DGen 75 merger. So shout out to our big guy in the sky, but this will be 50% off using code STONE2. And that's not just PGA only. You can get PGA with SaberSim. That's on the monthly plans or all access core monthly plan, where you can get it for basically it's $29, $39, or $49, depending on what you want and need. The best deal is the $49 all access for your entire first month, less than $2 a day. Come out, check it out, get in the Discord, meet people. If you're with another site and you want to come over and check it out, just shoot me a DM. We'll be able to get you set up there to get some action that way as well. All right, cool. Well, this is going to be it, guys. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. For Alex and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, good luck this week. Let's ship it.